Good morning, everybody. Jan Hicks of Jan Hicks Creates here, coming at you with something a little different. I decided to show you some punch needle today. Since doing the flip through that I did of the punch needle in Primitive Stitcher magazine, and then showing this piece on Instagram and my Facebook page last week, I've had a lot of comments, people interested in trying, liking the look of it, wanting to know more about it. So I thought I'd do, and I might do this every week, do a punch with me video, I don't know. Before I cut that off, let me just kind of introduce all this. It is Monday, July 29th at 7:50 a.m. I am working on the Ranunculus Bouquet pattern by Michelle Palmer. It is just a gorgeous piece with so many pretty colors. Isn't that pretty? I love this. So I am working on this flower right here. With punch needle, you usually get a I don't remember. I've only ever done Kate Guillory and Michelle Palmer design, so I can't, and I did one from the old Tattered Flag. Michelle also includes a picture. For those of you that may be wondering, you punch on the back. So what you see here is the back, and then the little fluffy parts are on the front. And I'll turn this over in a bit, the piece I'm working on. But Michelle gives you a picture of the back as well, so you can get a better feel for placement of things. So I am working on this flower here. Yes, that's right, I had to double check. And you're also, because you're working on the back, everything is kind of flipped, so that's something you have to get used to. So what I'm doing here is working in a circle on this flower. I decided, one of the things that you decide going in, and you do get some guidance from the designer usually, if only just looking at the picture to see how she did it. I did the leaves kind of as a long up and back kind of feel, whereas the flowers I want to do in a circle. So as I'm coming around here, this is where I started, and this is the end of the floss, and you just have a long, this strand of floss is still just attached to the skein. I'll say more about that in a minute. But I want to snip off this end, and you snip it off right down close to the fabric so that it doesn't get in my way. And the scissors that I use do have a slight curve to them, so I can actually lay them flat and get real close to the fabric without having to worry about snipping the fabric. So I am going around in a circle. Like I said, the floss is still connected to the skein. Again, this is actually the first Michelle Palmer design that I've done, and she calls for using 6 strands of floss, and so I don't have to cut off and separate it all, so I just left it all attached to the skein. One thing that's important to know about punch needle is that you want to have this, your strand of floss laying loose. You don't want it to get caught or snagged on anything. As soon as you start to feel a pull against pushing down through the fabric, that means that you've snagged, and you don't want to have any resistance. So one of the things that I'm aware of as I'm working on this, and I'm going to move this a little closer, you can see the outlines of the pattern, and I did draw this, trace this onto this fabric with a Sharpie, and you won't see it at all once this is done. But you can see, so the pattern called for some lines of 932 in here, and then the circle of the flower is here, but you can see I have a bit of a gap here. So I actually need to turn this over and see what it looks like from this side. So there you can see my needle poking on through. So it doesn't appear to be much of a gap there. but I would like that to be a little bit tighter, and the same over here. Now I will have this background color to fill in. So when you're punching, one thing you're staying aware of is how densely packed you make your stitches. I know some people, I've seen some pictures on Instagram, and it's mostly, I think the backs that I'm seeing on Instagram are mostly those that are punching with yarn, with wool. So it's a bigger punch, and it's a bigger I don't know, footprint. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. The backs are so neat, and everything's so evenly spaced. This is only my third punch piece, so I'm still learning. And my stitches, my punches aren't that even. I mean, they're not bad, but some people could display the work from their back. I definitely can't. And besides, you have the little tufts. Okay, so I mentioned this gap here bothering me, right? This right down here in between the blue and the pink. I'm gonna go ahead down, and what you do, if you have to jump a little gap like this, you just kind of hold on to the floss coming out of the needle and jump over there. And I'm just gonna fill that in with a line. One thing you do have to be aware of is that you don't want to be so close that you're pushing out your previously punched tufts, loops. So we'll have to check that here in a second. I'm going to continue around. I'll have to fill in that area there that I skipped over. So you do want to keep aware of how close together, or the spacing on your punches. I think of it as kind of the width of this needle. So from one side to the other is how far apart I want my punches to be. Much more than that, and the other side looks too gappy and too loose. And if you get too tight and make your stitches too close together, then your fabric can draw in. It's just too much, it's too dense for the fabric, and so it starts to draw in, and that's when you start to get kind of a rippled effect to your finished piece. I'm gonna come down here and fill in this area. One of the questions, or one of the comments that somebody had on Instagram, on my post on Instagram, was that they have trouble making their loops even. And by that, I think she meant the surface. The thing about the punch tool is, you know, you see, especially the Ultra Punch, you have these settings here. You can move, I'm not going to do it now since I'm in the middle of things, but you can move this, well, maybe I will. You can move this around to it. And the larger the number, the larger the loop is on the front. And so when you're punching down, this sets the depth. You're punching down the whole way to the blue, right? The base of the needle. And that's what is giving you that even pile, I guess, on the other side. So that's kind of like really a no-brainer in that regard. You can see I'm having to spin the hoop around constantly since I'm going in a circle. Right when you end, you pull up and you hold down the floss so that that loop doesn't pull out a length. And then again, cut it off close to the fabric. So let's see what we have here. This is a Morgan hoop that I'm using. It has that nice lip. Okay, so let's look at this. you can see when I came close over here, and I did kind of feel this, I was afraid of it. I did get a little too close, and can you see, I don't know whether you can see from this angle, there is one of the pieces of the 932 floss that got pushed out a little bit. Do you see that? That is really easy to fix. You just take your scissors, again, these curved ones are perfect for this, and you just snip off that piece that's too long. And there you have it. So now, let's flip it back over. What else? So I had pulled out my length here to cut it off. I shorten it back up. You really only need about a 1/2 inch sticking out just to have a little length sticking out. And let's see. This little flower here is also this 818 pink. So make sure I have plenty pulled out here. I think, you know, there's many people, now granted, a lot of people are like, I don't need to start another hobby, Jan, just go away. And I totally get it. And that's kind of what I first thought when I first thought about starting this. But it is, number one, I like the fact that it's using up floss. And Michelle Palmer, as far as I know, like I said, this is only my first design from her, but from what I've read of her other designs, you know, on Etsy, and I will link her Etsy shop below, she pretty much just uses DMC. Even this variegated here is a DMC. It's like 4508, I think. There's two variegated DMCs in here, 4500 and 4508. So I like that I'm using just, you know, kind of what I already have. Now, of course, I had to buy the Ultra Punch and the hoop, and that's fine. And I have a couple different size hoops for these projects. So I get it if you don't want to start another hobby, but I know, like, when I first started, my biggest intimidation was tracing the pattern. It's like, oh my God, how do you make sure that it's perfect? I'm not a very good artist. Well, of course, tracing the pattern, it's a no-brainer. You don't need anything fancy. I did just tape mine to a window, the sheet that I was tracing to a window, and then tape the weaver's cloth over top of it. And then trace like that. Like I said, I just used a fine tip Sharpie that I had. But you can also get patterns that are pre-printed, so you don't even have to worry about tracing. See how quick that goes? That's the other thing I love. You can just see results so much more quickly than cross stitch. Now, cross stitch is still going to be my first love, not to worry, but this is just a nice break. So after then you get the other way you can trace the pattern. This is one of the tips that Deb Yoakum gave at the StitchCon retreat when she was teaching people about punch needle. I'm trying to see where I'm going next. Okay, I'll be doing this outer bit here. Was that you can just put the pattern, tape the pattern to a table, and the weaver's cloth, and this is called weaver's cloth. Oh, that's the one other thing I wanted to do. I'm starting to loosen up here. You want to have this drum tight. You don't want to have any give on the fabric. So I do periodically have to kind of pull this. See that? That's what you want. Anyways, you tape the pattern to the table and tape the weaver's cloth over top. And that is, the weaver's cloth is thin enough that you can see through it. You don't need to tape it on a window. You don't need a light box. You don't need anything fancy. Just tape it on a table, tape the weaver's cloth over top of it, and start tracing. Now, a lot of people that are more experienced than I am go a lot faster than this. I start to go fast and then I get a little more wobbly and my spacing gets off. So I just take it slow and steady. Trying to think other comments people made. I had a bunch of them. I think most of them were just, no. Or, I got a kit and I've been kind of afraid to start it. I got a kit at such and such a place, but I've kind of been intimidated to start it. Just start it. I promise it's not a big deal. Especially if you have all the pieces and it's already traced. Now, you may not have a hoop, and the hoop is an important part of it. Because you can't just use a regular embroidery hoop. You need to have the hoop with the lip that keeps your fabric as tight as possible. So other than that, let's see, I am looking forward to tomorrow's gift extravaganza announcement. I will be spending my time first thing in the morning choosing the winners and then getting a recording done, announcing all the winners. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so here I was starting to pull on my loop, so I just need to pull out some more floss from the skein. There are some skeins that I actually wound the whole skein into a little ball so that it could just roll off. I just didn't feel like taking the time this morning to do that with this one. So let's see, tomorrow my regular floss tube will be the gift announcement and all the different things I've been doing. Well, one thing in particular I've been doing over the weekend. I got kind of mesmerized by one particular project, but there will be more on that tomorrow. I don't want to give anything away. We did some good hiking this weekend. It was the muddiest path we've been on. I mean, there were places where it was just a mud bog, like inches of mud. So our shoes are a mess. We have to scrub them off. But it was fun. All right, guys. I think I am going to end it here. Mostly because I've run out of things to say. Like I said, no notes for this one. Just kind of winging it. If you have any questions, do let me know. You know, questions of what you're seeing me do here, questions in general. Like I said, I am by no means an expert. This is only my third piece. But it is not difficult. And like I said, it does go so much faster than stitching. So if you're looking for something that, you know, to give you a break, I recommend this. So let's flip this over again. So I did, in 20 minutes, I did that, and I did that, and I'll get a good start done on that one. Isn't that pretty? So anyways, let me know if you have any questions. Always happy to help. I will link Michelle Palmer's website below, our Etsy shop. I'll link Kate Guillory too. She's the other designer whose designs I've done. She's also on Etsy. I think her shop is called Briar Cottage Studio or something. I'm noticing that I have a little bit a loop here that's a little bit higher than the rest, so I have to cut that off. But it really is easy. You know, not a whole lot to think about once you get the feel for it. So anyways, I hope you guys have a good day. I will talk to you tomorrow, and it's going to be an exciting floss tube and probably a long one. I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.